When I was 23 years old, I took a job as a teacher in the Abbeville County School District and taught the 5th through 8th grades on Daufuskie Island, South Carolina for a year. I wrote about the extraordinary experiences I had in my book, The Water is Wide. What I found on this island that I called Yamacraw shook me to the core of my being. 7 of my students could not recite the alphabet. 3 children could not spell their names. 18 children thought Savannah, Georgia was the largest city in the world. Savannah was the only city any of the kids could name. 4 children could not add 2 plus 2. 5 children did not know their birth dates. 4 children could not count to 10. Half of them were incapable of expressing even the simplest thought on paper. 3/4 of them could barely spell even the most elementary words. 3 of them could not write their names. I had stumbled into another century. Those children needed and deserved so much more from the educational system of that era. If they lived in other parts of South Carolina, they might have gone on to become scientists, engineers, scholars, artists, and writers. Sadly, very little has changed in the rural school districts of South Carolina, clustered along Interstate 95 from North Carolina to Georgia. Another generation of South Carolinians has grown up in places like Daufuskie Island, never knowing the promise of America. Because the water is even wider today, it's no wonder that 8 rural school districts have sued the state of South Carolina for the resources they need to provide their students an adequate education in a world of change. I admire their courage, and I hope they win their fight. This documentary is their story, and they tell it well. I ended The Waters Wide with these words. Of the Yamacraw children, I can say very little. I don't think I changed the quality of their lives significantly or altered the inexorable fact that they were imprisoned by the very circumstance of their birth. I felt so much beauty in my year with them. It hurt very badly to leave them. For them, I leave a single prayer, that the river is good to them in the crossing. That is still my prayer.
The plaintiffs in this case are suing the state of South Carolina on the grounds that they're not being supported well enough to provide a minimally adequate opportunity to become educated. And in this case, I believe their case has tremendous merit.
We have a disparity in funding in a region of our state. The counties have been named. And I said in the paper, if I had a child and I lived in one of those counties, I would want relief. The reason we have disparity in funding is not because we're prejudiced at the governmental level. It's because we collect taxes based on property values. And our property values in those counties are pretty low because there's no industry. It's an economically deprived area.
J.B. Martin was built in 1896, and the only thing that I can say about it is we need to give it to the Historical Society, which wants it. As far as an educational advantage, it has none.
Psychologists. A lot of you probably already noticed the rags stuffed in the cracks under the doors, and those are places where when it rains we have to keep it constantly mopped up, sandbagged or whatever to keep the water out. So it's a pretty sad state in here.
We have raw sewer that backs up into on the hallway, and when it does, we have bugs and worms that comes in with it, and it is extremely unsanitary for our students because they track through this when they're walking in the hallway and they take it back into the classroom where they remain for the remainder of the day in the carpeted area.
A few weeks ago, we had a heavy wind and rainstorm, and the wind blew the covering off that building over there, and the rain soaked the ceiling tiles in the entire building, and the entire ceiling fell out onto the floor. We're talking about approximately a 50-year-old building there. Fortunately, we had no school. It was during time school was closed, and there were no children in the building. Other than that, we would have had a catastrophe on our hands.
The child, when they walk in the door of the school, needs to be able to feel safe, secure, warm, welcome, loved, and cared for. And if the building they walk into is not safe, warm, cared for, they already know that there's a strike against them.
One of the most dramatic and startling things when I first came to Estill High School was what I noticed of the average age of the books in our media center, in our library, books that dated back to the 40s and the 50s. And when I picked up one book that said, "One day man will land on the moon," and then here we are in the next century, that's not good enough for our young people.
I believe that the most important person in this school is the teacher.
One of the toughest jobs I have at Creek Bridge High School is attracting and retaining good teaching talent.
We have a very high turnover rate of teachers.
Why? Because teachers come to districts based on the type of facilities, the type of resources, and funding is an issue.
1/3 of our teachers are new to our school every year. The children are hampered every single time.
Every day I had a blues.
Children in a poor community can learn if the resources are there, qualified and certified staff there, and administrators that know how to deal with those barriers that those children bring to the classroom. That those children can be very successful if their social and emotional problems are addressed, as well as their educational needs. And eventually, I think we will see examples of that if the state will really fund us at our right level.
Unemployment rate in our county is among the highest in the state. We're currently over 18%. Sometimes we've been over 20%. Our businesses pull up. We lose our tax base. Who's going to fill the gap? Who's going to step up to the plate and help fund the schools and get us what we need to educate our children?
My deepest worry is this. If we turn our backs on these rural school districts, we'll lose another rising generation in these communities who won't be able to fulfill their potential and realize their dreams. We'll lose our small towns, see them turn into wastelands, and we'll lose the rural heritage, character, and soul of South Carolina that has made us who we are.
As far as education in South Carolina, we're at a crossroads. This decision that our legislature has to make is going to either doom rural South Carolina to poverty and second-class education from now on, or either we're going to stop and take a look and say we cannot leave 1/3 of our population out there without an adequate education, and that's what we're doing at this time.
I think this is an absolutely critical time in the history of South Carolina. The stakes are high for us. Our future is dependent on what we do in the next few months and years. It's in the best interests of all of us in South Carolina to do something for the children in poor rural school districts. What happens to the least of us happens to all of us. We all have an economic stake in the success of our state, and we will only be as good as our poorest school districts.